Have you ever wondered what stirs in the heart of a man when a woman withdraws? Not in anger, but in serene, unshakable stillness. There's a mystery in her absence, a quiet force that ripples through the male psyche, unraveling his certainties and awakening a primal hunger. Carl Jung, the sage of the unconscious, would call this the dance of the anima and animus, where the feminine spirit, in its silent retreat, becomes a mirror to the man's unspoken desires. This is not the absence of weakness, but a presence so potent it lingers like a shadow cast across his soul. A woman's detachment, when wielded with intention, is not abandonment, it is alchemy. It transforms her into an enigma, a sacred puzzle that beckons the masculine to confront its own depths. In the realm of Jungian thought, the feminine is not merely a counterpart to the masculine but a force of profound mystery, an embodiment of the eternal that exists beyond the ego's grasp. When a woman steps into detachment, she is not fleeing. She is reclaiming her sovereignty. She becomes the archetype of the high priestess, seated in quiet knowing, her silence louder than any declaration of love or rage. This silence is not cold but warm with the glow of self-possession, a flame that burns without needing to consume another. It is here, in this sacred withdrawal, that the man begins to feel the weight of her absence, not as loss, but as a call to his own individuation, the Jungian journey toward wholeness. Consider the man who thrives on pursuit, his ego tethered to the thrill of conquest. When met with a woman's sudden detachment, his world tilts. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, would remind us that what we cannot control reveals our truest selves. Her absence strips away his illusions of power, forcing him to face the shadow within, the part of him that craves validation, that fears being unseen. Jung would argue this shadow is not a flaw but a teacher, urging the man to integrate his unconscious desires rather than project them onto her. Her silence becomes a canvas, and onto it he paints his deepest longings, his regrets, his unspoken need to be chosen. Why does this wound him so? Because in her detachment she reflects his own unclaimed freedom, a freedom he both desires and fears. Now pause for a moment. Have you ever felt the power of your own silence, the way it shifts the air around you? When you choose to step back, not out of spite but from a place of inner clarity, you become a force of nature. You are no longer chasing, no longer pleading for recognition. You are whole, and in that wholeness, you draw others into their own reckoning. This is the feminine divine at work, a sacred energy that does not demand but commands through its very existence. Jung saw the feminine as the vessel of the soul's mysteries, the anima that guides the masculine toward its own hidden depths. When you detach, you are not merely pulling away. You are inviting him to meet you in a place where masks fall and truth speaks. But detachment is not a game of manipulation. It is a spiritual act. It requires courage to stand in your own truth, to release the need for external validation. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, would call this the art of self-mastery, the ability to find peace in your own company. A woman who detaches does not diminish herself. She expands. She becomes the ocean, vast and untouchable, her depths unseen yet felt by all who approach. The man, caught in the tide of her absence, begins to question his own anchors. Does he pursue her to fill a void, or does he seek her because she mirrors a part of himself he has yet to claim? Her silence asks these questions without speaking them, and in doing so, it stirs the obsession Jung described as the projection of the anima, an intoxicating blend of desire and dread. This is the paradox of detachment. It is not about creating distance but about creating space. Space for truth, for reflection, for the soul's quiet voice to emerge. A woman who masters this art does not lose herself in the dance of attraction. She becomes the music itself, elusive yet undeniable. The man, drawn to this melody, finds himself chasing not her body but her essence, a force that cannot be possessed but only met with reverence. And so, her absence becomes his awakening, her silence his invitation to look within. The dance of detachment, as Jung might frame it, is not a mere act of withdrawal but a sacred unveiling of the self. A woman who steps into this space does not shrink. She expands into a presence that commands without demanding, that captivates through its very restraint. Her silence, far from being empty, is pregnant with meaning, a canvas upon which the masculine psyche projects its deepest yearnings and fears. Jung's concept of the anima, the feminine within the man, comes alive in this moment. Her absence stirs the unconscious, pulling forth the hidden desires he has buried beneath layers of ego and control. It is not her presence that unsettles him most, but the void she leaves, a void that mirrors the unacknowledged parts of his soul. In the stillness of her detachment, she becomes a mirror, reflecting back to him the truths he has avoided. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, would argue that true power lies in what we can control our own thoughts, our own responses. A woman who detaches embodies this philosophy, choosing to govern her inner world rather than seeking to manipulate the outer. She does not chase, nor does she plead. She simply exists, whole and complete, in a state of serene indifference to the chaos of external validation. This indifference is not cruelty but clarity, a refusal to let her worth be defined by another's gaze. And yet, it is precisely this refusal that ignites the man's longing, for in her self-possession he glimpses a freedom he has yet to claim for himself. The masculine psyche, often tethered to action and conquest, finds itself disarmed by this quiet power. Jung would suggest that the man's obsession with her absence is not merely romantic but archetypal, a confrontation with the anima, that eternal feminine that resides in his unconscious. When she withdraws, she ceases to be a mere woman and becomes a symbol, a gateway to the mysteries he has yet to explore within himself. Her silence forces him to sit with his own discomfort, to question the narratives he has constructed about love, power, and worth. Why does her absence burn so fiercely? Because it reveals his own dependence on her presence to feel whole, a dependence that Jung would call a projection of the unintegrated self. Now imagine yourself standing at the edge of this truth. You who have felt the weight of another's expectations, the pull to be seen, to be chosen. What happens when you release that need? In that release, you become untouchable, not because you are distant, but because you are complete. Your silence speaks louder than any words, for it carries the weight of your inner world, a world that no longer bends to the whims of another. This is the feminine power Jung revered, the anima as a force of creation and destruction, capable of dismantling the ego's illusions with a single, unwavering glance. When you detach, you are not running. You are standing still, rooted in the truth of who you are. This act of detachment, however, is not without its shadows. Jung's concept of shadow work reminds us that every light casts a darkness, and a woman's withdrawal can stir her own inner doubts. Does she fear being forgotten? Does she wonder if her silence will be misread as weakness? These are the whispers of the shadow, the parts of herself she must confront to fully embody her power. Yet, it is through this confrontation that she grows, integrating the fears and desires that once held her captive. Seneca would counsel her to embrace this discomfort, to see it as the forge in which her strength is tempered. Her detachment is not a rejection of love, but a reclamation of self, a refusal to let her soul be diminished by another's inability to see her fully. For the man, her absence becomes a crucible. He may chase, he may plead, but in doing so, he is forced to face his own shadows, the insecurities, the need for control, the fear of abandonment. Jung would argue that this is the path to individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the conscious and unconscious self. Her detachment does not destroy him. It invites him to grow, to meet her not as a savior or a prize, but as an equal, a soul as complex and vast as his own. And in this dance, both are transformed, not by possession but by the mutual recognition of their own sacred depths. The woman who masters detachment does not seek to wound, she seeks to awaken. Her silence is a gift, a space where truth can breathe. And in that space, both she and the man she captivates are invited to step closer to their truest selves, to the divine spark that Jung believed resides in us all. The feminine art of detachment, woven with Jungian threads, is a tapestry of power and mystery, a silent symphony that resonates in the spaces where words falter. When a woman withdraws into her own sacred center, she does not merely step away from a man. She steps into the fullness of her being, embodying the archetype of the wise woman, the one who knows without needing to prove. This is not a retreat born of fear, but a deliberate act of presence, a choice to honor the divine feminine within. Jung would see her as the anima incarnate, a living bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, her silence a portal through which the masculine must pass to confront his own hidden truths. In this space of absence, the man's psyche is laid bare. His pursuit, once fueled by the thrill of desire, now becomes a pilgrimage into his own depths. Jung's concept of projection illuminates this dynamic. The man does not chase her, but the idealized image of her he has crafted in his mind. Her detachment shatters this illusion, forcing him to see not only her but himself. The Stoic wisdom of Marcus Aurelius echoes here. Only in letting go of what we cannot control do we discover our true strength. Her silence, her refusal to bend to his expectations, becomes a mirror reflecting his own unclaimed power, his own unhealed wounds. He craves her absence not because she is gone, but because her absence reveals the parts of himself he has yet to embrace. This is the alchemy of detachment. It transforms both the woman and the man. For her, it is a reclamation of sovereignty, a refusal to let her worth be measured by another's gaze. She becomes the ocean, vast and untamed, her depths inviting yet unattainable. Jung would describe this as the process of individuation, where she integrates her shadow, the doubts, the fears of being unseen, and emerges whole, radiant in her self-sufficiency. Her silence is not a weapon but a sanctuary, a space where she communes with her own soul, untouched by the clamor of external demands. And yet, it is this very self-possession that makes her magnetic, a paradox that draws the masculine toward her like a moth to a flame. Now consider the power that lies within you. When you choose to step back, to let silence speak where words once rushed, you are not diminishing yourself. You are amplifying your presence. You become a force that cannot be grasped, a mystery that cannot be solved. This is the feminine divine, the energy Jung saw as the lifeblood of the soul, capable of creating and destroying with equal grace. Your detachment is not a rejection of connection but a redefinition of it, an invitation to meet on sacred ground where both souls stand whole and unmasked. In this space, love is not a transaction but a mutual unveiling, a dance of equals. Yet this path is not without its trials. The shadow, as Jung taught, is ever present, whispering doubts even to the woman who stands in her power. Does she fear her silence will be mistaken for indifference? Does she wonder if her absence will drive him away rather than draw him closer? These are the questions that test her resolve, the shadows she must face to fully embody her strength. Epictetus would remind her that true freedom lies in mastering these inner voices, in choosing to trust her own worth over the fleeting validation of another. Her detachment is not a denial of love, but a deeper commitment to it, a love that begins with herself and radiates outward, illuminating all who dare to meet her in truth. For the man, her absence is both torment and teacher. It stirs the anima within him, That feminine essence Jung believed holds the key to his soul's awakening. He may resist, clinging to his ego's need for control, but her silence offers no purchase for such illusions. It demands that he look within, that he confront the fears and desires he has projected onto her. In this confrontation, he begins to see her not as a prize to be won, but as a mirror of his own potential for wholeness. Her detachment, far from breaking him, becomes the catalyst for his own individuation, a journey toward integrating the light and shadow of his being. Thus, the woman's silence becomes a sacred act, a gift that transforms both giver and receiver. She does not detach to manipulate or to wound. She detaches to honor the truth of her soul. And in doing so, she invites the man to do the same, to step into a space where love is not possession but reverence, where two souls meet not in need but in mutual recognition of their divine essence. The silent power of a woman's detachment reverberates through the unseen realms of the psyche, a force that Jung would recognize as the anima's quiet rebellion against the ego's tyranny. When a woman chooses to withdraw, not in retreat but in reverence for her own inner truth, she becomes a living archetype, part muse, part oracle, wholly untouchable. Her absence is not a void but a presence, a space where the masculine must confront the raw edges of his soul. This is no ordinary silence. It is a sacred pause, a moment where the eternal feminine asserts its dominion not through words, but through the unshakable certainty of its own existence. In this act, she does not merely step away from a man. She steps into the fullness of her own myth, a story written in the language of the soul. For the man, this silence is a reckoning. Jung's teachings on the anima reveal why her absence cuts so deeply. She is not just a woman but a projection of his own inner feminine, the part of him that yearns for connection, for meaning beyond the material. When she detaches, she withdraws this projection, leaving him to face the emptiness he has tried to fill with her presence. The Stoic wisdom of Seneca would counsel him to embrace this discomfort, to see it as an opportunity to reclaim his own power rather than seeking it in her. Her silence forces him to question the stories he tells himself, about love, about worth, about what it means to be whole. He craves her absence because it reveals the parts of himself he has yet to integrate, the shadows he has yet to embrace. This dynamic is not a battle but a sacred exchange, a dance of energies that Jung would describe as the interplay of animus and anima. The woman's detachment is not a rejection of the masculine, but an invitation to meet her in a deeper truth. She does not withdraw to punish. She withdraws to create space for authenticity, for a connection that transcends the superficial. In her silence, she becomes the alchemical vessel, the crucible in which both she and the man are refined. Her power lies not in what she says, but in what she withholds, not in what she does, but in what she chooses not to do. This is the feminine divine at its most potent, a force that creates by refusing to be consumed. Now turn inward for a moment. Have you ever felt the quiet strength that comes from choosing yourself over the clamor of another's needs? When you detach, you are not running from love. You are redefining it. You are saying without words that your worth is not negotiable, that your soul is not a currency to be traded. This is the essence of Jung's individuation, the journey toward wholeness that begins with honoring the self. Your silence is not absence. It is presence, a radiant declaration of your own divinity. And in that radiance, you become a beacon, drawing to you those who are ready to meet you not as a reflection of their desires but as a sovereign equal. Yet this path demands courage. The shadow, as Jung reminds us, is never far away. It whispers of loneliness, of the fear that your detachment will leave you unseen, unchosen. These are the trials of the soul, the moments where you must stand firm in your own truth. Epictetus would urge you to see these fears as illusions, as fleeting thoughts that hold no power over your inner peace. To detach is to trust in your own sufficiency, to know that you are enough, not because another validates you, but because you have claimed your own light. This is the feminine power that Jung revered, the anima that breathes life into the world, transforming all who encounter it. For the man, her absence is a call to awakening. He may chase her, driven by the ache of his own unfulfilled desires, but in doing so, he is drawn toward his own individuation. Her silence is not a barrier but a bridge, a pathway to the deeper truths he has avoided. Jung would say that this is the work of the soul, to face the shadow, to integrate the anima, to become whole. Her detachment does not diminish him. It challenges him to rise, to meet her not as a conqueror but as a partner in the sacred dance of existence. And so the woman who detaches becomes a catalyst, not only for her own transformation but for his. Her silence is a song, her absence a light. She does not need to chase, for she is already whole. She does not need to plead, for her truth speaks louder than words. In her detachment she finds freedom, and in that freedom she offers the greatest gift of all, the chance for both to become who they were always meant to be. In the silent expanse of a woman's detachment, a sacred alchemy unfolds, one that Jung would recognize as the eternal dance between the conscious and the unconscious. Her withdrawal is not a mere act of turning away. It is a turning inward, a pilgrimage to the temple of her own soul. She becomes the embodiment of the feminine divine, a figure who, in her stillness, radiates a power that both unsettles and enchants. This is not the power of force or domination, but the power of presence, a presence so complete it needs no external affirmation. Her silence speaks in the language of archetypes, whispering to the man's anima, stirring the depths of his being where desire and fear intertwine. In her absence, she becomes more present than ever, a paradox that Jung would see as the heart of the soul's mystery. For the man, this absence is a crucible, a space where his ego is tested and his shadow revealed. Jung's teachings on projection illuminate this truth. He does not crave her as a person alone, but as the embodiment of his own unclaimed feminine essence. Her detachment strips away the illusions he has woven around her, forcing him to confront the parts of himself he has denied, the need for validation, the fear of being unworthy, the longing for a connection that transcends the superficial. Marcus Aurelius would counsel him to embrace this discomfort, to see it as the path to self-mastery. Her silence is not a punishment but a mirror, reflecting back the truths he has avoided. In chasing her, he is chasing himself, seeking to reclaim the wholeness he has projected onto her. This dynamic is not a game of power but a sacred interplay, a dance of energies that Jung would describe as the union of opposites. The woman's detachment is her act of individuation, her refusal to be defined by another's gaze. She becomes the high priestess, see. Ted in quiet knowing, her silence a testament to her inner strength. She does not need to shout her worth, her very existence declares it. This is the feminine power that Jung revered, the anima that breathes life into the world, capable of creating and destroying with equal grace. Her absence is not a loss but a gift, a space where both she and the man can confront their shadows and emerge transformed. Now, imagine the freedom that comes when you release the need to be seen, to be chosen. In that release, you step into a power that is yours alone, a power that does not depend on another's approval. Your silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where you commune with your own soul, untouched by the chaos of external demands. This is the essence of Jung's individuation, the journey toward wholeness that begins with honoring the self. Your detachment is not a rejection of love but a deeper commitment to it, a love that begins with yourself and radiates outward, illuminating all who dare to meet you in truth. You are not running. You are standing still, rooted in the certainty of your own divinity. Yet the shadow is ever present, as Jung reminds us. The woman who detaches must face her own fears, the fear of being misunderstood, of being forgotten, of standing alone. These are the whispers of the shadow, the doubts that test her resolve. Seneca would urge her to see these fears as fleeting, as illusions that hold no power over her inner peace. To detach is to trust in your own sufficiency, to know that you are enough, not because another validates you, but because you have claimed your own light. This is the feminine power that transforms not only the woman, but the world around her, a power that invites others to rise to their own truth. For the man, her absence is both a wound and an awakening. He may chase her, driven by the ache of his own unfulfilled desires, but in doing so, he is drawn toward his own individuation. Her silence is a call to look within, to face the fears and desires he has projected onto her. Jung would say that this is the work of the soul, to integrate the anima to become whole. Her detachment does not diminish him. It challenges him to rise, to meet her not as a conqueror, but as a partner in the sacred dance of existence. And so, the woman who knows her worth does not chase, she chooses. In her detachment, she finds freedom, and in that freedom, she offers the greatest gift of all, the chance for both to become who they were always meant to be.